Hey folks, welcome to BrewTalk with Mr.Beer's episode 93 and installment 3 of our advanced education series. I'm your host, Ashley, and today we'll be discussing hops. What are they and how do they function within our brewing process? This is a big topic, so we'll be breaking it up into two parts, one airing this week and one airing next week. So I'll give you a little time to kind of soak in all that information. So let's get started on our topic. Many of you have requested hop videos as part of the advanced education pretty much since its inception. So I finally figured that I would go ahead and jump on that and provide that to you guys. So first, let's talk about what hops are. Hops are the flowers of the Humulus lupulus plant, otherwise known as the hop plant. It comes from the relatively small botanical family known as Cannabaceae. Hops have been used for centuries as medicinal herbs. They've been used as medicines, but most of us in the modern day are most familiar with them through their use in beer. So hops harvested for the purposes of making beer, bittering beer, flavoring it, those come exclusively from the female hop plants. So these days, the primary function of hops in beer is for bittering and as a flavoring component, which we mentioned. But there's evidence that hops began being used in beer this way around as early as 800 AD. Depending on your source, accounts can be earlier, but their cultivation and usage by humans is going back to 1000 BC. In the days of old, hops were as much of a flavor component as they were a functional ingredient. Besides imparting those characteristic herb and citrus flavors, hops also impart really important antifungal and preservative properties. As we mentioned earlier, we primarily use hops in brewing for their flavor and their bitterness contributions. Thanks to the mass production of a variety of hop pellets, professional and home brewers alike can create a multitude of hop-centric brews. There's even a growing list of vendors to fill the demand for fresh hops requested by home brewers, which formerly was really only a professional brewery thing. So what is it that makes a hop tick? Well, if you've spent any time on the internet researching hops, you've probably stumbled upon the words humulone and alpha acids, I would assume. Well, to start, humulones are alpha acids, and alpha acids, when it comes to brewing, are one of the more important, more front and center chemical components found in hops. You may have noticed when purchasing hops that the labeling often includes an AA or alpha acid percentage. This directly correlates to the bittering potential of that particular hop varietal. Since the alpha acid or humulone is what becomes bitter when it is exposed to heat in the boil, humulone that has been exposed to heat so that it becomes bitter is known as isohumulone or isoalpha acids. Because it has undergone the transformative process known as isomerization. So you can kind of see how that's all fitting together. Knowing the alpha acid percentage of a particular hop aids the brewer in hop selection that is appropriate for the specific flavor build. For example, a brewer may be building a recipe for a crispy, refreshing German lager, where a lower or moderate bitterness and hop aroma is desired and is style specific. It would make sense in this instance that the brewer would select a hop variety with a slightly lower bittering potential. And alternatively, if your plan is to produce a bitter and hoppy IPA, you would likely select a hop variety that offers a higher percentage of alpha acids and therefore a higher bittering potential. Of course, a brewer may select a hop of higher alpha acid variety for shorter boil times to speed up production for other reasons, which we will discuss a little bit later. The alpha acids in hops also make them highly resistant to gram-positive bacteria, which is one of the attributes that originally made them popular for the use in beer, way back when. Humulone is found most abundantly in the glands of the hop flower known as the lupulin glands. Commercial hop extracts are made from the contents of these glands. Many craft beers also boast using lupulin wet hops in order to impart as much fresh flavor into the beer as possible. The next notable group of compounds found in hops are the beta acids, otherwise broadly referred to as lupullones. Not only do these beta acids contribute to some flavor properties, but lupullones also play a big role in the bacteriostatic nature of hops, meaning they help to preserve and keep them safe from bacterial infection. The lupullone aromas in a hop are most apparent during the earlier, more active stages of fermentation. Unfortunately, because lupullones are so volatile, while you are catching lovely whiffs of them during fermentation, they are also escaping away from your brew into the atmosphere. Beta acids, unlike alpha acids, do not require any heat for their extraction. There are up to 250 different types of essential oils within a single hop plant, but some of them are more abundant than others, and a portion of them do not have any noticeable flavor contributions that we've discovered thus far. The most typically abundant essential oil found within hops is usually humulene. Most of the flavor and aroma from this oil is most abundant when hops are added late in the boil or through the dry hopping process, because it is pretty volatile and it degrades fairly rapidly. This chemical is generally most notably abundant in noble hops. Noble hops are varieties of high aroma and lower bitterness hops, and some of them are German and some of them are North American. Typically, when we talk about noble hops and their humulene content, we talk about the German nobles, which include Tettnanger, Spalt, Hallertau, and Saaz. There are also many modern blends and variations of these hops available. Humulene's aroma and character is generally described by a subtle, earthy, or herby, musky aroma. Myrcene is another common essential oil found in hops, perhaps most abundantly in the North American varieties. When added to a late boil or even after, myrcene creates a characteristic citrus and pine aroma in your beer. Varieties high in this are used in many heavily hopped North American beers. Although this chemical also degrades quickly, it's not quite as volatile as humulene or some of the others. Maintaining the integrity of those bright and citrusy myrcene oils is actually one of the reasons why we usually always advise you to drink your hop-centric brews as fresh and as young as possible. Some examples of hops that are high in myrcene include, most notably but not limited to, Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra, and Northern Brewer. And of course, like I said, that's just to name a few. There are a lot of them. Bay leaves are also high in myrcene, so that explains why I hear all the time some people say certain varieties of hops do remind them of the smell of bay leaves. They do have that in common. So, a little interesting fact for you. And next we have less abundant but still important. We have, and this one's a tongue twister, caryophyllene, which contributes to the spicy flavor, similar to humulene, and you can find high examples of high levels of this in cloves. So kind of that really spicy, very straight to your palate kind of pop in there, just like the clove does. Vanguard, East Kent Goldings hops, they often contain more perceptible levels of this particular terpene. It's one that you don't run into quite as often as the previously mentioned two. So the last essential oil we'll cover is called ferrocene. And it's not really one that gets talked about very much because it's not one that adds a whole lot of flavor or aroma to your finished product. Most of it is purged out during fermentation, as it is incredibly volatile. But if you could capture it in your beer, you would find that it has kind of a woody sort of earthy aroma to it. It commonly makes up a small percentage of the oils in all hops. Some are higher than others. Unfortunately, like I said, after boiling and fermentation, this essential oil is pretty much completely gone and is non-existent in the finished product. Notable beta acids found within hops include lupulone, colupulone, and adelupulone. Beta acids are not known for their bitterness contribution. However, because beta acids are initially insoluble, They can end up isomerizing over time in instances of like extended bottle aging or keg aging, and that can contribute to a really acrid, unpleasant bitterness later on down the road. Because beta acids often do not become consequential until much further on in the process, many homebrewers do not think about them very much. But if flavor stability over a long period of time is something that's really important to you, then paying attention to the beta acid percentages in your hops can be a good idea. So next we come to the characteristic of hops that hits us first when we give them a good smell. These are the essential oils. Essential oils, which are also known as terpenes, are important because they provide all those great flavors and aroma qualities that we associate with hop-centric brews. Essential oils are responsible for most of the words that you hear to describe hops, like grassy, piney, citrusy, earthy, etc. They are also extremely volatile and sensitive to destruction through their exposure to heat, oxygen, and even UV light. This is one of the primary reasons why a brewer will choose to add hops for aroma contributions either late in the boil or as a dry hop addition during fermentation. We'll talk about how to make that work for you in part 2 of this episode, but first we're going to go over some of the basics. You could easily justify saying that essential oils from hops give beer much of its character, and you would not be wrong in most cases. So given their importance, let's give a little more attention to those essential oils. It really helps to know what kind of flavors a specific hop type contributes when deciding how to design a beer around it. Understanding your ingredients in general is one of the most powerful tools for success in your brewing arsenal. Now that we've had an opportunity to discuss and learn more about what hops are, what they contribute, and what kind of chemicals they contain, please join me next week for the next part of this installment of BrewTalk with Mr.Beer's Advanced Education Series, where we will discuss the how, when, and why we use hops in brewing beer. If you want to see more educational content like this from Mr. Beer, please like, comment, and subscribe, because that's how we know you love us, and that gives us lots of encouragement to make more educational content for you like this. So give us that thumbs up and join us next week as we dive into part 2. Cheers, guys.